We are united in diversity. We are very heterogeneous in our opinion.
We are doing this in our open democracies, discussing this all open and loud, and I'm not for that.
What is European Union? What is freedom? How we learn together.
The obvious question is, what is the EU doing? What is our plan?
Good afternoon. So if you are looking for a sign that Politico loves you and wants you to be happy, we waited to have the intense discussion about food until after lunch. So thank you so much for joining us here. This is the second half of day 2 of Politico's Sustainable Future Summit. I'm Sarah Wheaton. Some of you might know me as the host of the EU Confidential podcast, but I am also the new agriculture and food editor, so I will be listening and learning with the rest of you to our expert reporters and panelists. We have an exciting afternoon in front of us, looking at how we can renew the trade of farming, the latest developments in the CAP, innovation in agriculture and food, and how to ensure Europe's food supply in an unstable world. Before we kick off those sessions, I'd like to thank our partners for making the summit possible. Leading partner Naturgy, presenting partners Bentley Systems, CFM, Mars, and Cefic, and networking partner IRU. We love a good debate on stage and in these halls, and also online. So share your thoughts with us on platforms like X, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, and please use our hashtag I think it's a different hashtag now. Politico Sustainable Future Summit. Sorry. We have a lot of summits at Politico, so we got to keep them separated. We want our summits to be interactive. As you saw, some good give and take with the audience here. And so I'll also start with Lucia here. Lucia, how's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what the panelists have to say.
Well, and you're moderating this next panel on how to revive farming and ensure a new generation of farmers. Why is this topic important, and what are you hoping to hear?
Well, I mean, there are some pretty scary statistics out there about the aging farmer population here in Europe. Over a third of farmers are over 65, while only 12% are under 40, which is a pretty scary statistic for any sector, frankly. So I'm really looking forward to discussing, the serious solutions to that problem being provided at the EU level alongside of our panelists. And I'm also looking forward to discussing the wider issues that are facing the farming sector, so issues around sustainability and competitiveness. So those are the topics that I'm really looking forward to digging into.
Okay, sounds great. I'm going to go watch and leave the floor to you.
Thanks very much. All right. Well, without further ado, we'll get started. We're tackling a pretty big question in today's panel: how to revive farming, the 7-year plan for growth. Luckily, I've got some experts alongside me to dig in. So I'd like to start by introducing, beside me, we have Jérôme Kandel. Jérôme is an associate professor at Wageningen University, and his research focuses on how governments can steer food systems towards a more sustainable or less sustainable path. Next to him, we have Anna Strollenberg. Anna is a member of the Green Parliamentary Group in the European Parliament and also an active member of the Agriculture Committee. Her recent work has been really varied. You've worked on biopesticide approvals and also encouraging women into entrepreneurship in rural areas, so I'm excited to discuss that. Then alongside her, we have a voice from the inside, Hayes Schildhuis, Director of Sustainability at DG Agri. So Hayes has been involved in drafting much of the legislation that's been keeping the rest of us busy over the past year. Maybe we'll get some hints at what will keep us busy in the future, who knows. And finally, for a national perspective, I'd like to welcome Adam Nowak, Deputy Agriculture Minister of Poland, and also former member of the Young Farmers Movement, SEJA. So thank you all very much for being here. Without further ado, I'd like to get started on the fundamental question if we're talking about the future of farming. How do we get people to stay or to become farmers? After all, that's what we fundamentally need at the end of the day. So I'd like to start with a quick fire round to get everybody involved. What is one thing that the EU could do to make farming an attractive profession? I'll start in order with you, Jerome.
Well, I would say stop ignoring the problems that confront the agricultural sector, right? We know that the EU's agricultural system is not on track to meet the EU's climate and biodiversity targets. And as long as you don't put any credible policies in place to make the agricultural and larger food system fit within planetary boundaries, you're never going to provide European farmers with real economic perspective.
Thanks very much. And on to you, Anna, starting strong there.
I just had a small different phrasing, but I wanted to say the same, but in a positive way, like have a vision. Because at this moment, for me, it's pretty unclear where in Europe we want to go with the farming and the food sector. So to make it more attractive, farmers need to have a perspective where you're going and reward those farmers that want to do something different. For example, have a more sustainable way of farming or experiment with protein crops. Those farmers should be rewarded.
Thanks very much. Hej?
Well, the good thing is we have a vision. It was published in February this year, and attractiveness of the sector is one of the key elements there. I think the one answer to your question is we need to provide economic perspective so farmers can thrive. So we need to provide that through enabling them to make money as an entrepreneur. From food, bioeconomy, adopted a bioeconomy strategy recently, but also income support when necessary, particularly for farmers that really do need it.
Thanks very much.
In my opinion, viability for young people starts with restoring fair and decent incomes, because it's a decision for young people, for all future life, for all career. But we also have to remember that rural areas will be not only the place for the work for these young people, but also the place for life, for the family life. And we have to guarantee for young people, for young families, access to public services, also for high quality infrastructure, for another services. So it's important to achieve good, stable development of the countryside, of rural areas, and also guarantee for stability from income side and for profitability of farms.
Thanks very much to all of you. That gives us a really good sense of the big issues that you two see, and then also more specifically, the policy areas, where's the money coming from, how to make rural areas attractive also for families. So I'd like to come back actually to the more specific side, and then we'll get to the general. So starting with you, Adam, I mean, as I mentioned, you have a background in the Young Farmers Movement, and actually SEJA, the organization that you came up in, have been quite critical of the 6% aspirational target that has been set by the Commission for spending on generational renewal. In your view, on the ground in Poland, is this target achievable? Is the money there to deliver on the elements that you just highlighted?
We will see, because in Poland, at the moment, we have quite good situation with young farmers, especially young managers of farms. It's a result of Polish membership, quite short membership in the European Union, and it's a result of first funds from Common Agricultural Policy, especially for installation aid and modernization of the agriculture. But we have to remember about every part of this process. First, important is education is very important. We have to give young farmers good access to knowledge, good level of education, especially agriculture education. Second one is access to funds. Without good position at the start, maybe from ancestors, maybe from another source, it could be very hard to start with high-level farm, and now this competitiveness is very important. And third, crucial and the most important thing is access to land. It's, in my opinion, now in the European Union, young farmers, for young farmers, is the biggest challenges with access to land, and without good, big area of farm from ancestors, it's impossible to start with agriculture, with farming. So there is a challenges for us, for the politicians, but sometimes I feel rather like farmer, not politician, because I remember my roots from farmers' organization, and it's also very important task and challenge for scientists, for politicians, also for media, to show for young farmers that agriculture can be attractive, but like in every business, you have to be innovative and to achieve this competitiveness in your farm level.
Thanks very much. And then, Hayes, I'm going to come to you because I heard you as we spoke backstage in the Agriculture Committee having a very similar debate yesterday, and you reaffirmed, that the Commission is very strongly committed to generational renewal, not only within the CAP but also with its strategy. I wanted to ask you about how the CAP budget should be prioritized to deliver on the promises, whether that be the aspirational target, and does getting targeted support to young farmers or small farmers necessitate taking support from larger farmers through capping and degressivity, or from older farmers by limiting area-based direct payments to people over pension age? Where's the balance for you?
Yeah, thanks. No, that's a very good question, and it's very much the issue of public policy, how to prioritize. And what we have said in our vision and what we have said in the reform proposals for the Common Agricultural Policy is that we want to target payments, and particularly income payments, more. In fact, we have proposed digressive area-based income support, really focused on supporting incomes, where we say member states should target it at those who need it most. And we've listed a number of categories of farmers that we think should be prioritized, but it's the assessment of the member state in their planning that needs to come to the final conclusion, and young farmers are indeed one of them. And of course, if you prioritize, if you target, there is a consequence to other groups of farmers, right? So I think that is also something we need to acknowledge and recognize, and that is precisely what we have done through proposing capping and degressivity of payments for higher farmers. They have economies of scale, they need less support. Money is always scarce, support is always scarce. We need to really prioritize, and the same goes for older farmers. So we have said we need to provide a good transition in farming. Our generational renewal strategy is all about making sure farmers can retire with dignity and young farmers can start. And this process needs to be supported through cooperation measures where we can link, which is already happening in some member states, helping the move from one generation to the other. In the CAP proposal, we also say for the income part of the support, so not the environmental payments, not the small farmer payments, but for the income part of the support, this should no longer be granted to farmers who receive a pension, precisely because we want to target this, and this after a transition phase, so not immediately.
Mm-hmm. And just a quick follow-up on that. If, for instance, capping and degressivity, limiting subsidies to large farms, doesn't make it into the final proposal, will that undermine the whole math of it? Is it really contingent on that money delivering on other priorities?
It's never a good idea to start speculating, but I believe that there is and in the European Parliament it was quite clear, and I believe it's also the case in the Council, there's a clear commitment from the legislative institutions for generational renewal. So I believe that this commitment will be accompanied by good allocation of budget, and the Commission, notably through its recommendations for member states on how to use the CAP budget, will highlight this. So I don't think it's one or the other. Generational renewal will certainly be there, but we need to realize that if we want to transform farming, if we want to make farming resilient, future-proof, I'm sure we're going to talk about all kinds of other things that farming needs to do. We have a lot of expectations for farming. If we want to do this, we really need to help farmers also in the transition, and we need to think about how we spend the money. And that means spending money differently than we do today.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much for the really detailed answer. And Anna, I'd like to come to you for an area that you specifically have expertise in. You led the Agriculture Committee's opinion on encouraging entrepreneurship among female entrepreneurs in rural areas. And I was wondering if you could give any light to the gender dimension of farm renewal. What are the issues specifically facing women? And is there the political will to address those in your view?
For sure. Can I quickly respond to also this question?
Yes, please do.
Because I'm very positive about some of the proposals about generational renewal. For example, to have a land observatory, so we know where the land goes. The 6% recommendation is good, but I still wonder, will this actually be spent on young farmers? Because it is an ambition, but we have to see what happens. Later on, the next panel, we will talk about CAP, but there we see that the only ring-fenced money is for direct payments. It becomes very attractive, of course, for countries to work with direct payments, but it's less attractive to then allocate funds specifically for young people or for environmental measures. So I think it's a good start, but I'm a bit more skeptical about how this will look in practice. Mm-hmm. About female entrepreneurships, I think this is an important topic to address. It's maybe not the first thing you would think about, but we see that in the agricultural sector, women often don't have the strongest position because there's still the transition of inheritance from father to son, if we talk about a land ownership. So women often work on farms with their partners, but they're not landowners. So they're less stable and autonomous. So therefore, if there's a difficult situation, they're less strong. Or, if, for example, if you talk about separation, what will be then the financial position of women? And the less unstable you are, if you talk about dynamics, also, but this goes very far. If you talk about gender-based violence, you want to be autonomous. There's a second thing, that for women who are interested in entering the sector, it's also more difficult for them to enter. When I talk about with female entrepreneurs, they often want to have smaller farms or more diverse enterprises with agrotourism or daycare. So if we want to make the sector attractive for women, we also have to make sure that those who want to enter and maybe do it in a different way get rewarded for this.
Okay, thanks very much. That's an interesting perspective, and like you said, not the first thing that necessarily comes up in discussions like this. I'd like to ask you, Jeroen, for a more broad view, because I know that you've commented in the past that focusing specifically on generational renewal could be limiting in the renewal and allowing new entrants into the sector could allow for some fresh perspectives, actually. In your view, which new entrants to the EU farming sector would go the furthest towards reviving it?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's important to consider how young farmers could be helped to take over their parents' farms. But I think we should have a much broader discussion about how we can foster renewal in the agricultural sector in a much broader sense, because there's many super exciting experiments with groups of citizens buying land and then hiring a farmer. There is also enterprises like Colruyt in Belgium entering into farming. Now, you might debate whether it's always a good step forward, but we see that many new ideas about the future of farming, new technologies, new ways of organizing ownership actually exist outside of the agricultural sector. And so far, the debate at EU level mainly centers around helping young farmers, whereas I think that results in many lost opportunities for genuine innovation in the sector.
Okay, thanks very much. And that leads on perfectly to our more broad next topic, which we're going to focus on future-proofing, as you mentioned, another element of the vision, so sustainability. And I'd like to stay with you for a moment, since this is obviously one of your areas of expertise. Simply, in your view, is European agricultural policy, specifically the new Common Agricultural Policy, steering the bloc towards a more sustainable food system?
No, it's not. I mean, most money is still spent on supporting an unsustainable status quo in the form of hectare payments. 82% of CAP money ends up with animal-based production, whereas actually Europe, but also the Dutch government, want to foster a protein transition, so towards more plant-based futures. We talk about innovation, competitiveness, but novel protein. So the intensive livestock sector receives 1,200 times more public funds compared to novel protein producers like cultured meat. So those innovators, be it high-tech or more low-tech, regenerative farmers, organic farmers, they all face an unlevel playing field in which most public funds are channeled into the status quo, into the dominant way of farming, which can also externalize all societal costs to the taxpayer, because a polluter pays principle is not applied in the agricultural sector, which is an indirect form of subsidy. So it's a highly unlevel playing field that's not fostering sustainability or innovation in any respect.
Very strong words there. Thank you very much. Heish, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond. An opportunity to respond, and I pose the same question. Do you feel that the Common Agricultural Policy is bringing Europe's food system on a more sustainable path?
Yes.
Yes.
No, I really have the feeling that we're living in different worlds. To start with the innovation aspect, I mean, we're stimulating innovation in food and agriculture very broadly, also in agroecology very broadly, through research policy, through joint undertakings, fostering small companies, providing for authorizations of new products. So there is a wide range of innovation ongoing. And in terms of the claim that the EU Common Agricultural Policy support goes too much to classical farming, I think there is a lot of good reasons to provide support to this sector, because of the income challenges, because also of the sustainability challenges. I mean, large part of the budget, currently 32%, goes to additional efforts that farmers make to farm more sustainably. And on the issue of livestock, I take issue with the 82% figure, because I think livestock is fabulous, and we need livestock. We need it for protein, we need it for landscape maintenance, we need it for manure. And I think maybe your vision is partially clouded by the fact that in the Netherlands there are too many animals in a small space. So maybe there's an environmental challenge. And the Commission, in its contacts with the Dutch authorities, of course, underlines also that the environmental legislation needs to be respected. But that should not take us away from, that should not lead us to the conclusion that there is a problem with livestock. I think we need livestock in the EU. And we need it in a sustainable way. And in fact, in the policy proposals, we really have a lot of elements where we ask member states to support extensive livestock, because we do not have in many regions enough animals.
And can I ask a follow-up then on the livestock issue? We're obviously expecting the livestock strategy next year. Can you give any indication on which parts of the sector that will try and strengthen? Which direction do you think that will go?
Well, I think generally in the direction that we need to have a sustainable livestock sector. So clearly we need to have a future for livestock farmers, particularly in areas where and in sectors where this is very difficult. Notably in areas where it's also more difficult to farm, where you also cannot do anything else with the landscape because the soil is not good enough for arable farming. So it's that orientation, and I think we need to also one of the objectives we clearly want to have is a bit to say, which I maybe said very very loudly, but it's to back away from this idea that all livestock is bad. We need to make sure that we understand that livestock is an integral part of our agricultural system. I think that is really what we are keen to do. But the strategy is still in preparation, so I find it difficult to now give you all the answers. But the orientation is really to underline the important role that livestock plays in European agriculture.
Thanks very much. And Adam, I see you eager to jump in, please.
Yes, in my opinion, sustainability in agriculture, is the best proof of efficiency in agriculture. Because we need diversity, we need animal production, we need plant production. We also have to use perfectly opportunities in agriculture for energy production, for zero emission energy production. So there is a lot of challenges, but we have to remember about several areas of sustainability. First, important is economic sustainability, because sustainability is the pillar of long-term competitiveness. We have to show for consumers that in the European Union, European farmers achieve the highest level of sustainability in the world, but we have still a lot to do in this area. Second one is environmental sustainability. And also farmers are in the front line of the challenges with climate change, in the challenges with climate changes. And we can discuss about several natural disasters in the European Union, and how European Union support reaction after these disasters. But now, maybe in new perspective, we have to find some solutions how to reduce risk before these disasters. And third important part is social sustainability. We have to remember that in majority farms in Europe, we have only, as workers, we have only owners of the farms. And it's important to guarantee good standards of work for farmers, also for women, for young farmers. In my opinion, now we are during digital revolutions in the European agriculture. For example, Recovery and Resilience Facility support farmers in this area, but now in new multi-annual financial framework, in new perspective, we have to find new solutions, maybe carbon farming, carbon credits. We have to find solutions how to support and how to pay farmers for not only food security practices, but also for another activities.
Thanks very much for such a detailed answer, Anna. Everybody else had their shot, so I put the same question to you, and then I'd like to also ask you a little bit about simplification, since you were there for the whole CAP simplification process through the Agri Committee. But first, if you'd like to say anything on this topic.
Yes, for sure. I think the discussion we heard before about livestock, I think there's no one here that says there's no future for livestock. There is. We know, though, that if you look at the agricultural sector, a lot of industries are improving their climate impact, and we know that in the future the agricultural sector will be one of the sectors with the most impact on the climate. And I think this comes from science, that we know this. It is a political choice, and the Commission at this moment is also political choices where you want to invest and where you don't want to invest. If it was up to me, I would look within the agriculture vision on 3 things that I think we're not focusing enough on, which is health, because 1 in 2 people in the European Union is overweight. So if we want to have a sustainable sector, we also have to look at what is the food they produce, and the money within our common agriculture budget should also go to those producers that create healthy foods, can be fruit, can be vegetables. We have to look at circularity, because this is also, okay, if we have the livestock, what is the role of livestock in our society, in our sector? And it could be, there is a room for them if it is circular. So yes, there it is possible, but yeah, that. And then I think we have to look at strategic autonomy, and I also feel there that the debate is not going in the right direction. If you look at what are we dependent on, it's the import of fertilizers, of soy from Latin America, and from energy. So if we want to be economically independent and strategic autonomous, this is what we have to focus on. And then the whole transition to more novel foods and proteins also comes into play.
Yeah, plenty of food for thought across the board on this. Thank you so much. I'd like to close out our discussion towards the end talking about some Brussels buzzwords of the day. So we're going to talk about simplification and competitiveness. I mentioned I'm curious to hear your thoughts on simplification, Anna, because the CAP simplification package recently was agreed between the Parliament, Council and Commission. And the Parliament was really pushing for the simplification to go much further in terms of the GAICs and different green requirements. I wanted to hear your perspective. Where's the line between simplification and kind of pushing back sustainability in your view? And do you think that the Commission, Parliament and Council are striking the right balance?
Simplification in itself is not something bad. And we know that there's a lot of bureaucratic hurdles that people in this sector experience. So this is something we can definitely look at It is true that there is a line, and I feel like we're breaching this line and focusing too much on simplification, and it will hurt our climate ambitions. Lately, we had a lot of discussion on EU deforestation, on corporate social responsibility, and there I feel like we are pushing our responsibility and our goals there. There are some positive benefits if we look at simplification. I also worked on pesticides, so to switch from chemical pesticides, conventional, to biological control solutions. There, simplification could matter a lot, because it would mean that these green alternatives can enter the market quicker. And this can also help farmers. This is a great way of simplifying and also reaching our climate goals. However, I'm a bit worried, because this can also be seen, and the first communications that went out, is that it is seen by also the Commission as an excuse to also simplify procedures around chemical pesticides. And I do think that is then not the right reasoning, because we want to phase out chemical pesticides and move towards green alternatives. And there I'm a bit worried about where we will go.
And just jumping in on that last point, I need to ask Hayes. We're talking about the Food and Feed Simplification Plan. Any hints that you can give us on what that might look like once it's revealed?
No, but
I had to ask.
but I think I fully agree with Anna that this encouraging of biocontrol solutions is really important, and with that comes the important element of continuing innovation in how we protect our crops, right? So we need to make sure that a future system really encourages the private sector to develop those innovative solutions that are less bad or not bad at all for the environment and for public health. So that is a key consideration for the work that's ongoing. But for the rest, I think you have to wait a couple of days.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, thanks very much. I had to ask, you know. And Adam, I'd like to ask you about simplification, because it's included as one of the ways to make the agricultural sector more competitive in the vision for agriculture and food. Do you feel that simplification is improving competitiveness on the ground?
I think yes, because in my opinion, we have to remember proposals of farmers during protest last year, also this year in some European Union countries, and we need less bureaucracy, more innovations in the agriculture. Also, digital innovations in the area of applying for European funds, not only from Common Agricultural Policy. Maybe we have to open a new competitiveness fund wider for farmers in Europe in new perspective. But we have to remember about simplification also that we need more voluntary practices, less obligatory practices, but we have to remember that we should stay with good level, with the highest quality of European food. Because now we know that in a majority of European countries, EU-Mercosur agreement is the warmest topic. And now we have to find good solution, good competitiveness points, challenges for our farmers, because at the final, the consumer will decide who is the right. And I think that we need stable financial side. That Polish position is very easy. We need two pillars, common agriculture policy, but the most important for us is sufficient budget and to stay with every important interventions for farmers. The structure is not so important like funds and these interventions. And my final remark, at the least we have to remember that European Union, also European farmers, have to achieve again competitiveness in the global market, because now it's the biggest challenge for us, and we have to achieve this balance between sustainability, between very ambitious aims also in environmental area, and competitiveness, because in the final decision, farmer will count all the costs and incomes, and it will be the final reason of decision, profitability of the agriculture.
Okay, thanks very much. And Jeroen, I'd like to bring you in here on this discussion of competitiveness. I mean, at the end of the day, what do you think the biggest challenge is for European farmers to be competitive on the international stage?
I mean, I think it's an illusion that we as Europe can be competitive by aiming for bulk production, by lowering our sustainability standards as is going on. And so in 5 years ago, there was a credible sustainability agenda that might help the European agricultural sector to future-proof itself. But since then, we've seen a withdrawal of the pesticide regulation proposal, the shelving of the sustainable food system proposal, the watering down of nature restoration law, watering down of industrial emissions directive. We know that if you want to foster real innovation, that you need to have clear long-term legal standards that don't change every so many years in place, that you need to change incentives on pesticides. I mean, there is a pesticide directive since 2009 that says you can only use pesticides as a last resort. You should invest in integrated pest management, yet that's still not being done. That's why the Commission wanted to introduce this new regulation, which has been withdrawn again. So we're still saying, okay, we want to switch to alternatives. There's insufficient innovation. Well, that is because there's no legislation and no good incentives on the topic. So I think it's now suggested that there is sort of a cleavage between sustainability and competitiveness. But I think if you want real competitiveness, the two should go together. And we see a shift that's now going in the other direction.
Okay, well, thanks very much. And it's a shame to end on quite a bleak note, but I'm afraid that that's where we are time-wise.
That's my role as a scientist.
But it's not the absolute last word. You will all get your last words because I've just got one more quick-fire round for you to bring us back down to earth. 7 years from now, you're on a farm in your home country, for many of you the same country, and the EU has continued on its current trajectory following the current vision. What do you see? I'll start with you.
By far, the most important challenge is to switch towards more plant-based production. That's the largest source of emissions, the largest contributor to biodiversity loss. So I hope in the Netherlands we will have all sorts of protein-rich plant-based production replacing the intensive livestock sector.
So that's the hope for you. What about you, Anna?
I have a very similar dream or vision that this would be the case. I already visited some farmers who switched from, for example, creating yogurt with milk. They have now their own soy farm. So there's so much innovation there, and that is what I would love to see. And I would love to see more female farmers in the sector, having diverse companies with both tourism options as they're experimenting with different protein crops.
Thanks very much.
Building on that, clearly I would like to see a younger farmer on average than today, and I think that's possible with all the policies that we put into place. But also, I think there's not one stereotypical farm, right? We have many different types of farms, and this diversity is really what we need. In some areas, there may be larger farms, much more competitive, producing commodities. In other places, farmers have the opportunity to do much more multifunctional type of farming. And I think we need this diversity. So depending on where you make me land in Europe, I will see a completely different farm. But I really hope also that this will continue to be a relatively small scale, or at least family type of based farming, because I think that is also very important for the livelihood of our rural areas.
Thanks very much.
Yes, and my final remarks and foods are related to Polish presidency in the European Union Council in the first half of this year. And the main slogan, the main sentence of our presidency was Security Europe. And now farmers are the same important like soldiers, because we have food security in Europe, and we need good generational renewal, we need good support for farmers from EU fund, we need also good law regulations for stay with high level of food security. And in my opinion, now it will be very important to show to our European society that from European common agriculture policy, we are not only supporting farmers, we are supporting consumers and stability and security of Europe. And it's mine some final words, because we need high level of security, and at the moment it's important like never this time.
All right, and with that, thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for your attention, and I'd also ask the audience to stay seated. My colleague Bartosz is about to come on to really dive into all of the CAP details that we skimmed over here. I'd like to thank my panelists for all of your thoughts and your visions for the future. Thank you very much.